Hi, everyone, and welcome to Teach Time in the afternoon, where I, Miss Adventure in the Classroom, talk about my RIPE critical knowledge building system. It's a really exciting new learning device is definitely the wrong word. It's a system that is meant to help you structure your classroom discussion in ways that are more meaningful and cultivate critical thinking. So you're already doing critical teaching in your classroom, but this will help you provide a backbone. It's a device to help structure your critical classroom discussions so that you can really cultivate meaningful dialogue with your class and talk about some really cool stuff that normally we haven't done in traditional schools. The critical tradition is a new, exciting addition to our schooling legacy. So, today we're going to be talking about the third step in the RIPE system, RIPE. We've talked about revere, we've talked about imagine. Today, we've moved on to problematize. Ooh. So, how are we going to problematize lessons in our classroom? Well, at the top, it says examine this knowledge for weakness. So, again, this is not something that traditional schooling does, but it's something that's critical to developing students' awareness of their identity as problem solvers. You see, this is a really important identity that we all have and we can engage in. We are problem solvers. As a species, this is what we do. We find challenges and we overcome them. We've done this throughout time. We love to do it. We are constantly finding new problems, new challenges. Nothing will ever be perfect enough for us humans. We're always going to find problems with it. Things won't be perfectly tailored to our situation. That's what our life's about, is making things more tailored to who we are. That's what we do. We go out into the world and we make the world better for humans. We like to call that, in the critical tradition, humanizing. We go out and we make the world a little more humane for us and for our communities. That's what we do. So, in order to do that well, we have to be able to solve problems. And in order to solve problems, you need to know what problems look like. What are problems? If we can't identify them, we're never going to be able to solve them. So, it may seem odd that it seems like a negative thing, right? Problematize. But here's the thing. There's this great Mitchell and Webb joke that I'm sure I'm going to refer to all the flipping time because it's so beautiful. I love them so much. So there's this great Mitchell and Webb sketch. They're a British comedy team that you should definitely check out. And it's of these people. I'm surprised they don't do it over and over in different time periods, but I believe they're in like the 1600s, right? They're these two people in the 1600s, and this one has created something, and he comes to show the other one and says, "Look what I've made. I've created a mouse," and it's clearly a mouse for a computer, right? And he's like, "It's this perfect thing. It's wireless and it has this ball inside and it moves when you move your hand." And the other guy's like, "Okay, for what? For what is this?" And he's like, "That I haven't figured out yet, but I've created this thing. It's going to be perfect for whatever that future thing is." And the other guy's like, "I'm totally butchering this, by the way. It is a comedy." It is very funny. But and the other guy is like, "Okay, cool. Let me put this in the closet with your other stuff, like this windshield wiper to get rain out of the way." Vehicles weren't created yet, so a windshield wiper didn't make sense. A mouse didn't make sense in the 1600s. Not that kind of mouse. That guy was solutionatizing. He was creating solutions without a problem. It's absurd. We don't do that. It's silly. It's something to laugh about. Completely absurd. We don't solutionize. We problematize. You can't create a solution out of thin air. That doesn't happen. There aren't wardrobes filled with inventions that solve future problems. Like, not exactly. I mean, maybe, but that's because they had the problem in mind. You can't do something, you can't solve anything without first knowing the problem. And in the critical tradition, when you take a critical look at what life is a bitch. Am I right? This is an adults channel. It's a bitch. Challenge after challenge after everything's a challenge. You open your eyes in the morning, it's a fucking challenge. Everything is a challenge. So, because of that, because everything's a challenge, we have to develop sight for what challenges can we not get rid of. Unfortunately, opening our eyes is a problem that we're going to have to just live with. I can't see a solution. Maybe there is one, but opening our eyes and beginning our day, yes, it's a challenge, but that's kind of one we have to face over and over and over. But we can identify it as such. We can say, look, that challenge is maybe not worth spending my life solving. Maybe I should focus on other challenges. So that's what problematization is all about. What problems are worth your time? Because guess what? Problems are everywhere. Your life is filled with them. Which ones are you going to try and solve? Which ones do you care about? Which ones matter to you? That's what problematization is all about. So, in the classroom, what you're going to be doing, man, I have had such trouble with the streaming quality of these videos, and they have been completely unreadable in the videos. So, any tips and tricks for this teacher who doesn't know anything about internet like this and streaming and video making would be of great help, because this is completely readable to me right now, but it isn't later in the video. And I have a nice camera I bought. I am frustrated by that. Capitalism not helping me with my issues. I keep throwing money at the problem and it isn't working. And I don't have enough money for that kind of nonsense. Okay, so this does read, brainstorm how this knowledge could be even more powerful. So this is what this is about. We're not trying to get all negative, like, there are problems. There are problems all over the place. And we just want you guys to look and see problems. Wherever you go, we're trying to make generations of people who just complain and are negative critics. And they're just problems everywhere. Guess what? There already are problems everywhere. This is just helping them problem solve in effective ways. So I don't want to hear any of that negative Nancy stuff. Don't come at me with that. Okay, so we're looking for how things can be more powerful. Ain't nobody got a problem with that. Or you shouldn't. I'm going to have to question your motives if you don't want things to be better. That's strange. I wonder why. Maybe because things are working out real nice for you when they're problematic for others. I think that's what you don't like. But too bad. We are going to question the past. Are there any problems with this lesson? No matter what we're teaching, whether it is math or science, let's look at its history. Yesterday we talked about how with imagination, you can't imagine a different past if you don't know the past of your lesson. Like, whoa, if I'm teaching trigonometry, who invented that? What is the history? Because it has a human history. What's the human history behind trigonometry? Who invented this stuff? We didn't just come at it. We didn't discover it out in the world. Like, oh my, is this trigonometry? I found trigonometry. I found it. Oh, that's not how it works. And even if that was how it works, it still would have been a human who had to discover it and write it down and articulate it. And guess what? These humans who discover things and write things down, We're not perfect. I know I dropped a big bomb yesterday about how humans aren't perfect. We've never been perfect. I know, shocking. Even when we all work together, we still get stuff wrong. So, problematization is about that, like knowing that about our nature. Like, hey, sometimes knowledge is going to be wrong. Let me give a fun little example. Remember Pluto? It's funny, there are multiple TV shows that play on the trope of Pluto and how I really do think that rocked our entire, like, everyone alive during this historical moment was like, what? There aren't 9 planets? Oh my god, I'm gonna have to readjust my whole mind now. Like, my whole map of the universe is, if it's not a planet, what is it? How could this be the case? Psych talks about this. Gus is always saying, what's the deal with Pluto? He's got an issue. He's upset about this change in the way we understand knowledge. In Rick and Morty, there's a great episode about, oh, what's his name? I can't remember his name, nor should I, because you're not supposed to like him. Jerry! Oh, Jerry. Sweet Jerry can't get over the fact that Pluto isn't a planet anymore, and he puts his foot down and he says, no, Pluto is a planet. Scientists might not say so, but I say so. Because I can't move away from the point that I learned this knowledge. This is it. When I learned the knowledge was as advanced as the knowledge was ever going to be, and so I refuse to advance with normal knowledge progression. That's kind of what happens in human history. We get to understand things around us better. So, perhaps had our historical moment been taught in school that, hey, this knowledge that we're learning, it's the best information that we currently have. It isn't necessarily correct, but we're doing our best. And it isn't just that. So yes, things do naturally advance. And so we have to learn how to problematize and be like, okay, this is a problem that is built in to the human experience with knowledge. Because knowledge is in our hands, it will change. It will change, and it will be used in different ways. Elements about it will be changed. How about new math? New math? How can they change math? We have no consciousness of knowledge. We did not learn the context around knowledge to prepare us. Like, yeah, I hope once kids go through my learning system and teachers use it in their classroom, that kids won't be surprised. Oh, new math? Yeah, that is how math's supposed to go. We're supposed to figure out new tricks and new ways to do it better. We're supposed to do that. If we don't, those people who invented new math, was it in, I'm going to get the country, Singapore? Was it Singapore? Oh, I'm going to feel bad if I got that wrong. But it was somewhere. It was in Asia somewhere. They created this whole new great way to do math, and it freaked us out. We couldn't handle it. And so many of us just put our noses up at it because we don't know how to evolve with the knowledge. But if we teach kids to problematize, and if we know, hey, this knowledge has weakness, and maybe you could figure out a new technique to make us do it better. You're part of this. You are a problem solver with the very knowledge you have in front of you. We could discover today you from your unique perspective, from your independent, unique individual place, could see something no one else in all of human history has noted before. You, with your unique cultural background, your unique historical moment, you could notice something that no one else ever has. Imagine how empowering that would be to young kids in the classroom. Like, oh, okay, now this lesson, this math, can become something new. It isn't just like, oh, I have to learn this because someday I have to pay bills as a grown-up. What a meaningless way to learn. How about instead, it's like, hey, This is how we do math now. What do you guys think? It's effective in these ways. By the way, this is the third step, okay? We've already talked about how great this math is. Look at all the great stuff that math does. Let's imagine what else the math can do. And let's imagine different ways the math could have been shaped. Now that we've imagined, we've seen the good, we've explored how meaningful it already is in its current form. Why do we learn this? What's the point? What could be different? Now that we've thought about what could be different, now we can be like, okay, now that I've thought about things that could be different, I see some problems. I can spot some things that could be tweaked and made better. Because not only are we fallible in that we're making mistakes that we don't even realize we're making, and Pluto wasn't a mistake, it was just a better categorization, right? And old math wasn't a mistake. There's just a faster way to do it with harnessing the tens and the hundreds, There's better ways to do it, quicker ways, more efficient ways. So that will always be part of the knowledge building process. But because it's in our hands also, not only are we accidentally not perfect, but often we have harmful biases and we make harmful choices, and we've used math and we've used science to harm people, right? The Rick and Morty episode is actually a perfect explanation. They're using on the planet of Pluto, so spoilers for all you Rick and Morty fans out there, the people on Pluto are eavesdropping on Earth. They're super annoyed that they aren't considered a planet anymore. What a snub. What a snub. And so they overhear Jerry complaining about, Pluto's a planet. It's definitely a planet. So they end up taking him from Earth and bringing him to Pluto. And why was that categorization important to the Plutonians? Why was that such a snub? Well, it turns out there was this whole power dynamic where Pluto, by the elite on Pluto, were claiming that, yeah, we're a planet, we're nice and big and beefy, we're a big planet. But what was actually happening it's not happening in real life, as far as we know. The Plutonians, the elite, were mining the core of the planet, and Pluto was actually shrinking. And so they were trying to cover up the fact that the planet was shrinking so they could get richer. Some of them could get richer. And so they needed to maintain the category of planet. They needed to use science to maintain this false narrative so that some people could get rich, so some people could make money. So they were interested in using science for harmful purposes. So sometimes that's been the case. And it's really important. That isn't always the case, of course, but because historically we've engaged in it, and presently I bet you we're engaging in it, don't think I'd have to look too far to find examples of that. But if we learn how to problematize, then we're going to be able to be aware that all knowledge can be used in not powerful ways. Well, it might be powerful, but it might be negative. So how can it be even more powerful? And implied in powerful here, I'm talking about also humanizing. How can this knowledge better humanize us too? So it isn't just about being accurate, which matters. It's also about making a positive difference. And often those two things should align, right? We should be telling the truth in schools because the truth is more humanizing. We're going to be more accurate with the way we map out the universe. So really, it was a humanizing choice. In real life, the Pluto choice was more humanizing because forget Rick and Morty and the whole Plutonian scandal of the elites. Now I'm talking about reality. Scientists basically realized the more technology we gained, the more information we had, we realized, oh, snap, There are a ton of planets. There are a ton of, I don't know, atmospheric element. What's a scientific name? Forget it. I haven't taught science in a while. There are things out in the universe. Celestial beings, not beings. Celestial things. Why am I trying to be fancy? There's stuff out there. And some of it, there's so much of the Pluto sized stuff that either we can cut Pluto out and just have 8 planets, or we can make children learn thousands and thousands of planets. Because now, if Pluto's a planet, all these others, welcome to the club, thousands of other celestial stuff. Come on in, join the club. Objects. Now I'm mad. Now I'm mad that I can't think of another word. Heard it. Ah. Okay, forget it. Move on. You're not coming up with any synonyms right now. Okay, so honestly, they made the more humanizing choice. It would have been cruel to keep Pluto a planet and make kids memorize thousands and thousands of planets. That would have been unnecessary and cruel. What a long standardized test that would be. Instead, scientists were like, let's make it easier. Let's be humane with our categorization choices. Because, yeah, if we were computers, sure, what the heck? What's another 2,000 added to the pile? But hey, we're humans. We got a lot going on. And it wasn't even about like just making life easier. It was accurate and it was more humanizing. So they made the good choice. So that's what happens sometimes. So those scientists made a humanizing choice with knowledge. Sometimes we need to know that that isn't always the case and hasn't always been the case. I can think of race science, for example, was studied. It was studied in college level, like academics and professionals and experts in race science saying that biology determined your intelligence. False, lies, incorrect. It has nothing to do with your intelligence at all. But that maintained for a really long time. And in fact, rumors like that are still sticking around. So when we are dehumanizing with our knowledge, it causes problems. That lasts. And we need to be aware. A lot of those problems are still around today from a long time ago. But I'd argue that we're still making dehumanizing choices now with our knowledge. Put some in the comments if you can think of some. Clearly, it's not the day for me to be brainstorming. I can't come up with another word. Look, I'm trying again. Shush, no more talk about outer space. Okay. I just started watching Carl Sagan too. Shoot, I should definitely have more. Next time I talk about space, I'm going to have so many words. Oh man, my vocab is going to be beefed up. Okay, so that's what Problematize is all about. I will stop talking about it now and pull a card from my stack, which where the heck did I put it? I put it in here already. Okay, so I've got some cards to discuss the philosophy behind Problematize. Because, yeah, I just rambled a long time about problematization, but that ain't no theory. Let me bring some theory. Boom. People much brighter than me who can come up with so many space synonyms are in this stack of cards. Boy, they know their stuff. So we're going to throw it in here. Knowledge of the people, by the people, for the people. What? Toss it in. Give it a shake. Reach in. I'm going to go to the bottom. Ooh. Who's on the bottom? Okay. I'm so bad at this. Okay, I do know Paul Willis. I can read that. Man, it is so blurry that I can't even read it in the screen. That does make me mad. Okay, here we go. All right, this is Paul Willis, and this says Profane Culture, which I haven't read all of, but I did pull this quote. We must interrogate, ask what are the missing questions, probe the invisible grid of context. Ooh, you see me smiling? I like that. Inquire what unsaid propositions are assumed in the invisible and surprising. Oh, this really makes me smile. I'm going to read it one more time. We must interrogate. Ask what are the missing questions. Probe the invisible grid of context. Inquire what unsaid propositions are assumed in the invisible and surprising. Oh, I love this. So, the ripe critical knowledge building system is about why. Why are we learning these facts? Because right now in schools, we're just like throwing facts at kids, and it's just about like checking boxes. Like, okay, I know this. Okay, I know this. Check, 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 check. Now let me prove it in a test. Bubble, 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 bubble. It's a lot of fun we're having in schools these days. Boy, oh boy. So, the ripe critical knowledge building system wants to breathe some life back into our knowledge with critical questions like this. So, by doing that, that means we're going to have to go outside the facts themselves. The facts themselves are putting us to sleep. We're falling asleep. I don't care what exact date the Boston Tea Party occurred on. Does it really matter? I haven't needed that my whole adult life. That isn't what's important from that story. Sure, it's nice to know, but like that fact, whatever, I can Google it. Especially now with the internet, things like that, what good is that to know? It's fine. Let's know it. I don't hate knowing it, but just knowing it by itself, why? Why? And why always means if we're asking why, here's the date of the Boston Tea Party, or whatever I said was the Boston Tea Party. The why is going to be around. Why do we learn this? So this is about when you're in class and you're learning about the Boston Tea Party and you're telling your kids to memorize this date because you have to take this darn test, which we should be resisting. But we can talk more about that later. But you have to take this test because you're like evaluated and blah, 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 blah. The system's really cruel to all of us. We have to teach our kids. They have to memorize this because we might get extra money if they do. It's a cruel thing. So we make our kids, oh man, just work, 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 work for nothing. No why. Okay. So you are memorizing the date of the Boston Tea Party. And we're not excited. The classroom, we're like, what's the date again? What do I have to write down? Take a pause. Boop. Okay, let's stop. And let's zoom out and look at what we're doing right now. We are learning as a class. It's very meta, right? It's like we've paused in real life in a video game. And in fact, that might be a fun thing to do when you press pause. Everybody freeze. Okay. In this learning moment, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we learning this? Who decided that you and me sitting here needed to know this? Who and why? And the test isn't a good enough answer because we've been learning things and knowledge has been valuable far before there were tests. Oh boy. Tests didn't exist for a really long time. In fact, some of you may have even, not me, I'm an unlucky one, but some of you may have never had to take a standardized test going through elementary school. I had to take it in 4th grade because I'm from Texas, and George W. Bush made the whole, whatever, it's blanking. I don't need to know it because I'm talking about the meaning behind it. Whatever that dumb, no child left behind. Oh, I know it. See, it's burned into my brain, that fact. Why do I know that? No, it's good to know. For context for you. No child left behind. Before he was president, he tested it out on Texas kids. So I've been testing longer. I was the very first TOS test, it was called. So yeah, that's my generation. I've been testing my whole life. I'm so smart. Those tests, boy, I feel smart. No, I don't. So tests can't be enough. So when you pause, it needs to be, okay, why would this matter even if we weren't taking that darn test? Because maybe someday we'll be free of these tests if we make them a problem and we begin to come up with other solutions. Maybe. I don't know. Just fancy critical thinking over here. All right, so when you pause, the whole point of that is to be looking, to be probing the invisible grid of context. So the person who decided that you have to memorize the Boston Tea Party date isn't in the room. And in fact, we're not even talking about that in the room. We're talking about the Boston Tea Party. But if you pause and say, okay, this is important to know why. Let's look into why this is one of the most pivotal moments in US history and why our ancestors, people before us, decided that we should know it. Why do they want us to know it? What lessons does it offer us today? So that's more reverence, right? Of like, let's look for the good, but also let's look for the not good, but let's look, we're looking out into the invisible. There's going to be we're going to find a lot as we probe what isn't right here in front of us. We're going to find good things and bad things. That's part of what we're doing. So we need to be prepared when we come across both. We're going to find good reasons. Like, hey, people should band together when they feel like they're being taxed without representation, when they didn't have a voice. People of Washington, D.C., people of Puerto Rico don't have representation in our Congress. They should come together and demand that they have taxation for representation. Right? That's a good lesson. I'm revering that. That's good stuff. I quite like that. But what else is out there? And I don't have any examples for you right now. I'd say one of the problematic things with the Boston Tea Party was, or at least the way that it's presented, is that everybody was on board. That, yeah, all of the colonists, the US colonists they were excited. They loved the Boston Tea Party. They were like, yeah, throw that tea in the sea. They throw that tea in the sea. America, America, USA, USA. No, that's a super one-sided way that makes it seem as if America is always on the same page. We always decide and we do the right thing. And we decided to throw that tea overboard because that's what Americans do. And everybody loved it. And we won, got rid of a king, the end. Overthrowing tyranny. We all love it. No, there was a group called the Tories who did not want to upset the king. They were conservative and wanted to maintain the dynamic. The current dynamic was working for them. They didn't want revolution. So weird that we don't talk about them. Weird that we assume everybody's on our side. We all loved it. No, there was struggle. There was conflict. In fact, they did it in the middle of the night. They also did other problematic things like wearing headdresses. So it made it appear as if indigenous tribes were the ones throwing it overboard. So there's another fun fact that I certainly didn't learn in schools. They didn't talk about that. Weird. Anyway, also, that was over $1 million of property damage that they did. Weird that we don't talk about that either. America, America, destroying property. That's what we've always done. Revolution. Yeah. See? You have to include even the sides you don't like because it's part of the story. Yeah, man, they did destroy property. They destroyed that property, turned the whole harbor into a tea, and it wasn't even about... Uh-oh. We might have some dog problems. I might have to pause for a sec. We have 4 dogs in this house. I've been waiting. I want to make a dog bumper. Maybe it'll stop. I don't think it will. I think I'm going to have to pause. Can I pause? Maybe I'll just edit this out. Okay, maybe it'll stop. If I'm lucky. Okay. I'll finish quick. Shoot. Hey, Rugby. Stop it, buddy. You stop. You're the loudmouth. He's mine. Okay. So, I'll stop talking about the Boston Tea Party. So there, I just pulled some things out of my head that I don't even know that much about the Boston Tea Party, but I know some. And a lot of it I wasn't taught in school. Weird. So that's part of the invisible grid of context, right? What are the missing questions? What is assumed in the invisible? Again, we assume the way it's presented, the way it was always presented to me, was that all of the colonists were cheering on. Woohoo! Yeah! Sons of Liberty! Throwing stuff overboard. And it was like actually about paper and stuff. There's like so much interesting history that we didn't even teach about. We just like, hey, we did this because we don't like kings. The end. Yay. Fly the bald eagle and shoot the fireworks. Pretty surface level stuff. And kids can handle deeper questions. And in fact, they crave it. We don't want the surface level stuff. We want to inquire what unsaid propositions are assumed in the invisible and surprising. I was surprised. Well, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised when I learned that they were wearing headdresses. I shouldn't have been surprised. That is some racial, political stuff. Man, it's been happening a long time. Boy. Okay, so this is what Problematize is all about, you guys. And yeah, not everyone's gonna like it, because what I'm saying is gonna shake stuff up, because knowledge of the people, by the people, for the people, when it's presented in a critical way, is gonna change the world, y'all. It's gonna change the way we do school. That's what problematization is all about. The way we do schools, I'd say there, if I examine the way we run our schools, I'm going to go ahead and say we can make it more powerful. We can make it more humanizing. There's so much that we can do that there are so many solutions right on the horizon. But first, we have to see the problems, okay? So open your mind and look for some problems. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. Look at me. I've been smiling this whole darn time. I'm not a negative person. I know that problems lead to solutions. When you are critical with problems, when you are, here it is. When you're intentional, when you put your intent towards something, when humans spend time with something, we puzzle through stuff if we're given the chance. So some people don't want us puzzling through. They don't want us to see any problems. They want us to only revere. Ah, yes, everything's good all the time. Not the case. Not the case. And that's what problematization is all about. It's a part of real life that we need to be prepared for. There are going to be good things we should look at, and there are going to be negative things that we look at. Also, I like that these two are aligned too. It works out pretty cool. But yeah, these two are kind of opposites, but you can't have one without the other. They balance one another. They are dialectical. Ooh, working in dialogue with one another. Okay, now I'm just ranting because I feel lucky that the dogs didn't keep barking. Whoop, whoop. All right, America, eagles, fireworks. Yeah, let's start problematizing. Am I right? Okay, tomorrow, we're going to be talking about enhance. Ooh boy, that's a super fun one. And look, I think this one might be my favorite emoji. I love those hearts. Just like bubbling out makes me so happy. Okay, so enhance, leveling up our knowledge. Ooh, 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 ooh. Love it. So I will see you tomorrow for another teach time then. Bye.